My wife told me the baby wasn't mine after I held him for the first time, and then tried to blame me for ruining the mood when I walked out. I'm Derek. I'm 32. My wife, Natalie, is 30. We've been married for 3 years and together for 6. She gave birth to our son 3 days ago, or I thought he was our son. His name is Owen. He's perfect. He has dark hair and these tiny fingers that wrap around mine when I hold him. I've been at the hospital every single day since he was born. I took 2 weeks off work. I've been sleeping in the chair next to Natalie's bed. She had some complications during delivery, and they've been keeping her for observation. I've been changing diapers and learning how to swaddle and feeling like my heart might explode every time Owen looks at me. Tonight, Natalie's parents came to visit. They brought flowers and balloons. They held Owen and took about 1,000 photos. After they left, Natalie seemed off. She kept looking at me weird. She said we needed to talk about something important. I assumed she wanted to discuss what the doctors had said about her recovery, or maybe she was worried about postpartum depression. I pulled my chair closer to her bed and told her I was listening. She took a long breath and said, I need to tell you something about Owen. I asked if something was wrong with him. She said no, he's healthy. But there's something I needed to know. She said when we were having trouble getting pregnant last year, she'd been really stressed. I told her I remembered. We've been trying for 8 months with no success. She said she'd made a mistake during that time. She'd reconnected with an ex-boyfriend on social media. They'd met up for coffee a few times. One thing led to another. I felt my stomach drop, but I still didn't understand what she was telling me. I asked if she was saying she had an affair. She flinched to the word affair. She said it wasn't like that. It was just a few times. It didn't mean anything. She ended it after a month. 2 weeks later, she found out she was pregnant. She said she'd assumed the baby was mine because the timing seemed right. But now that Owen was here, she wasn't sure. She said Owen looked a lot like her ex. She thought I deserved to know the truth. I just stared at her. I couldn't form words. She kept talking. She said she loved me. She wanted us to raise Owen together regardless of biology. He was our son in every way that mattered. She made a mistake, but we could get through this if we just focused on being a family. I stood up. I put Owen in his bassinet very carefully. I picked up my jacket. She asked where I was going. I told her I didn't know, but I couldn't be there. She started crying. She said I was ruining what should be a happy moment. We just had a baby. We should be celebrating, not fighting. I asked how she expected me to react. She said she expected me to be mature about it. She said plenty of couples work through infidelity. She said biology doesn't determine parenthood. I told her she'd had 9 months to tell me this, and she waited until after the baby was born. She said she wasn't sure until she saw him. I asked if she got a paternity test. She said no, she just had a feeling. I asked if she was basing our entire future on a feeling. She said she knew how this sounded, but she needed to be honest with me. I left. I heard her calling my name down the hallway, but I didn't stop. I got in my car and drove. I didn't have a destination. I just drove for an hour until I found this hotel. I've been sitting here ever since trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do. My phone won't stop buzzing. Natalie has sent 63 texts. Her mom called twice. My own mom called asking what happened because apparently Natalie called her crying. I haven't answered anyone. I don't know what to say. The worst part is I don't know if Owen is actually mine or if she's just panicking. She said she had a feeling, but what does that even mean? Babies change so much in the first few weeks. I've Googled it. You can't tell paternity just by looking at a newborn. But now I'm sitting here wondering if every time I looked at him, I was missing something obvious. Wondering if everyone in the hospital has been looking at us, thinking he doesn't look like me. Wondering how I'm supposed to go back there and hold him knowing I might not be his father. Update, 5 days later. I stayed at the hotel for 2 days. I finally answered my mom's calls on day 3. She wanted to know what was going on. I told her everything. She went completely silent for about 30 seconds. Then she said, Derek, that baby is 3 days old, and she's just now telling you this. I said, I know. She asked if Natalie had proof that Owen wasn't mine. I said no, just a feeling. My mom's voice got very cold. She said this was unacceptable. She said whether Owen was biologically mine or not. Natalie had lied to me for 9 months, and that wasn't something you just forgive. I went back to the hospital on day 3. Natalie was getting discharged that afternoon. The doctors had cleared her after monitoring her blood pressure and making sure the bleeding had stopped. I told her I'd help her get home, but we needed to do a paternity test immediately. She got upset. She said a paternity test would just create more problems. She said regardless of the results, we should focus on bonding as a family. I told her I couldn't bond with anyone until I knew the truth. She started crying again. She said I was making this into a bigger deal than it needed to be. She said the test wouldn't change anything because Owen needed a father, and I was his father in every way that mattered. I told her biology does matter. It matters legally. It matters for medical history. It matters because I deserve to know if my wife had been lying to me for almost a year. She said she hadn't been lying. She genuinely didn't know for sure. I asked when she started suspecting. She admitted she'd wondered during the second trimester when she looked at old photos of her ex. I asked why she didn't tell me then. She said she didn't want to worry me over something that might not even be true. I asked why she didn't get a prenatal paternity test. If she was so worried, She said she was too scared to know the truth. She thought if she just didn't confirm it, maybe everything would work out. We drove home in silence. Owen was in his car seat in the back, making little baby noises. I kept looking at him in the rearview mirror, trying to see what Natalie saw, try to figure out if he looked like me or like some other man I'd never met. When we got home, I carried Owen inside while Natalie grabbed the bags. I set up his crib in the nursery. I helped Natalie get settled on the couch. Then I told her I was ordering a paternity test online and it would arrive in 2 days. She begged me not to. She said it would ruin everything. I asked what exactly it would ruin. She said it would ruin our family. It would make me resent Owen if the results were negative. I told her I already resented the situation. I needed answers. She finally agreed, but she made me promise that regardless of the results, I wouldn't leave. I said I couldn't promise that. She started crying so hard she could barely breathe. I didn't know what else to say, but I also felt like I was the only one being rational. My best friend Marcus came over that night after Natalie went to bed. I called him because I was losing my mind. He brought beer and sat with me in the living room while I explained everything. Marcus is usually the calm, logical one, but even he looked shocked. He asked if there was any chance Natalie was having some kind of postpartum mental break. I said I'd thought about that. Marcus said either way she needed to see a doctor because this wasn't normal behavior. The paternity test arrived today. It's a simple cheek swab. You mail it back and get results in 3 to 5 business days. I did the swab on myself. And Owen this morning while Natalie was in the shower, she came out and saw me sealing the envelope. She just stared at it. She said, "So you're really doing this?" I said, "Yes." She said, "I hope you can live with yourself when this destroys our marriage." I said she destroyed our marriage the second she slept with someone else. Update, 2 weeks later. The paternity test results came back 4 days ago. Owen is mine. Biologically, he is 100% my son. I thought getting those results would make everything better, but somehow it made everything worse. Natalie cried when I showed her the results. She kept saying, I told you he was yours, but she didn't tell me that. She told me she wasn't sure. She told me he looked like her ex. She told me all of this after letting me believe for 9 months that I was going to be a father when she wasn't even certain. I told her we needed to talk about the affair. She said there was nothing to talk about. It was over. It happened during a difficult time. She made a mistake and she was sorry. I asked how many times. She said she didn't remember exactly. I said that wasn't an answer. She finally admitted it was maybe 6 or 7 times over the course of a month. I asked where. She said usually at his apartment, once in his car. I wanted to throw up. I asked if she'd used protection. She said not always. I pointed out that her OB would have tested her for STDs during her first prenatal appointment. She admitted they had and everything came back negative. But the fact that she'd been sleeping with someone else and then coming home to me without saying anything makes my skin crawl. I asked her to get tested again just to be sure nothing was missed. She agreed. I asked if anyone else knew about the affair. She said just her best friend Emma. Emma used to date Tyler's roommate back in college, so she knows both of them. I asked if Emma was the one who told her to confess. She said no. Emma told her to keep it to herself. Emma said there was no point in telling me if she didn't know for sure about paternity. I said that's insane. She got defensive about Emma. She said Emma was just trying to protect our marriage. My mom came over last week. She wanted to meet Owen. She'd stayed away until the paternity results came back because she said she didn't want to bond with him and then find out he wasn't her grandson. When she held him, she cried. She said he looked exactly like I did as a baby. She said she didn't understand how Natalie could have thought otherwise. Natalie overheard that. She got upset. She said everyone was ganging up on her during what should be the happiest time of her life. After my mom left Natalie, and I had the worst fight we've ever had, I told her she didn't get to play the victim. She cheated. She lied. She told me her son might not be mine days after he was born. None of that was happening to her. She did all of it. She screamed that I was being cruel. She was dealing with hormones and postpartum recovery, and I was treating her like a criminal. I said she committed a crime. Adultery is literally ground for divorce. She asked if that's what I wanted, divorce. I said I didn't know what I wanted anymore. She said if I left her, she'd make sure I regretted it. I asked what that meant. She said she'd tell everyone I abandoned her with a newborn. She'd tell my family I was abusive. She'd make my life hell. I told her to go ahead and try. I had texts from her admitting to the affair. I had everything documented. She realized she'd gone too far. She started apologizing, saying she didn't mean it. She was just scared. I've been sleeping in the guest room for the past week. I take care of Owen. I change him. I feed him bottles of pumped milk. I rock him to sleep. But I can't look at Natalie. Every time I see her with him. Whoever he is, some ex-boyfriend who she thought might be Owen's father. I asked her last night who he was. She said it didn't matter. I said it mattered to me. She finally told me his name is Tyler. He's someone she dated in college. They'd stayed loosely in touch over the years. I looked him up on social media. I spent an hour scrolling through his photos. My brain kept trying to find similarities between him and Owen, even though I know the test proved Owen is mine. Dark hair, certain expressions. I know I'm looking for things that aren't there. I know the paternity test doesn't lie, but Natalie planted this seed in my head, and now I can't stop seeing it even when there's nothing to see. I showed Natalie. I asked if this is what she saw. She started crying again. She said she was sorry. She didn't know what else to say. I told her sorry isn't enough. Final update, 4 weeks later. I moved out 2 weeks ago. I'm staying with Marcus while I figure things out. I still come over every day to see Owen. I'm not going to abandon my son, but I can't live with Natalie right now. Maybe ever. She keeps asking when I'm coming home. I keep telling her I don't know. We started marriage counseling last week. The therapist asked what we were hoping to get out of counseling. Natalie said she wanted to save our marriage. I said I wanted to figure out if there was anything left to save. The therapist asked us to describe the core issues. I said trust. Natalie said communication. The therapist pointed out that those are connected. You can't communicate without trust. During our second session, the therapist asked Natalie why she'd confessed. Natalie said she wanted to be honest. The therapist asked if that was really true. Natalie started crying. She finally admitted that Emma had mentioned Tyler had been posting things on social media that made it seem like he suspected something. Apparently, he'd seen Natalie's pregnancy announcement, and because Emma was still connected with Tyler through mutual friends, he'd started asking Emma questions about timing. Natalie panicked, thinking Tyler would reach out to me directly, so she told me first to control the narrative. My chest went tight. I asked if that was true. Natalie nodded. She said she was going to tell me eventually anyway. I said that's not the same thing. She'd only told me because she was afraid of getting caught. She said she didn't know how to explain it. She was scared. She made a bad decision. The therapist asked how that made me feel. I said betrayed again. I said every time I think I understand what happened, Natalie reveals another layer of lies. The therapist asked if there was anything Natalie hadn't told me. Natalie said no. Everything was out now. I didn't believe her. I asked if she'd had any contact with Tyler since Owen was born. She hesitated. I knew immediately. She finally admitted Tyler messaged her congratulating her on the baby. She'd responded with thank you. That was it, one message. I asked when. She said a few days before she told me about the affair. I stood up and walked out of therapy. Natalie followed me to the parking lot, begging me to come back inside. I told her I was done. She asked what that meant. I said it meant I'm filing for divorce. She fell apart. She grabbed my arm. She said I couldn't leave her. We had a baby. We had a family. I said she should have thought about that before she destroyed everything. I filed for divorce yesterday. I'm asking for 50-50 custody of Owen. My lawyer says I have a strong case. Natalie's affair and her erratic behavior after the birth will work in my favor. Natalie's been sending me dozens of messages begging me to reconsider, telling me she'll do anything. I haven't responded to most of them. My mom came with me to see Owen yesterday. She's been amazing through all of this. She told Natalie very calmly that she was welcome to bring Owen to visit whenever she wanted, but she needed to stop harassing me. Natalie said she wasn't harassing anyone. She was trying to save her marriage. My mom said there was nothing left to save. Natalie had made her choices, and now she had to live with them. Owen is almost 8 weeks old now. He's getting bigger. He smiles at me when I hold him. I love him more than anything. None of this is his fault. He didn't ask to be born into this disaster. I'm going to make sure he knows he's loved and wanted. I'm going to be the best father I can be, even if that means doing it separately from his mother. Marcus has been letting me stay in his spare room for as long as I need. We've been watching a lot of bad TV late at night. When I can't sleep, he doesn't try to give me advice anymore. He just sits with me. Yesterday, we went to look at apartments. I found one about 15 minutes from Natalie's place, close enough that I can see Owen every day. It's a 2-bedroom, so Owen will have his own room when he stays with me. I put down a deposit this morning. I start moving my stuff this weekend. Marcus is helping. So is my brother who flew in from Seattle. He said he wanted to be here. I haven't seen him in 2 years, but he dropped everything to come help me move into my first post-divorce apartment. We're getting pizza after just the 3 of us. Marcus joked that this is my new life now. Pizza and roommates like we're in college again. My brother said at least I don't have to deal with someone who lies to my face anymore. Natalie called yesterday, asking if I come to Owen's next pediatrician appointment with her. I said yes. I'm at every appointment, every milestone, everything. She said maybe we could get lunch after. I said no. She started crying. She said she didn't know how to do this alone. I told her she'd made that choice when she decided to cheat. She hung up on me. I'm doing okay. I'm not great. I wake up at 3 in the morning thinking about everything, wondering if I'm making the right choice, wondering if I should try harder to make it work for Owen's sake. But then I remember her telling me he might not be mine right after I held him for the first time. I remember her threatening me when I said I might leave. I remember finding out she only confessed because she was afraid of getting caught. I can't build a life with someone like that. The apartment lease starts next week. I bought a crib for Owen's room yesterday, the same model we have at Natalie's place. I want him to feel comfortable in both places. I got baby monitors and diapers and everything I'll need for when he stays with me. Marcus helped me set everything up last night. He said the nursery looks good. Owen's going to have 2 homes now, 2 places where he's loved and wanted. I'm going to make sure my place feels like home for him.